Hi, it's been a while. Same here.
I'll give it 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. This is the trial type evidentiary hearing in case number 9056 and 9064 regarding the recent October 2019 bid cycle and the competitive bids that were filed for default service for customers taking standard offer service. Let's begin with appearances. Counsel for Commission.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Lloyd Spivak for the Commission staff. Staff will be presenting David Hoppeck and Frank Mossberg of Bates White on the stand this afternoon.
Thank you. Do we have other counsel making appearances? Counsel for Delmarva.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Matthew Seegers for appearing for both Pepco and Delmarva Power.
Thank you. Mr. Spivak, how many witnesses do you have today?
Staff has two witnesses.
Thank you. Counsel for Office of People's Counsel.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. William Fields for the Office of People's Counsel. I just wanted to enter my appearance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spivak, please call your first witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Commission staff calls Frank Mossberg to the stand, please.
Raise your right hand. Do solemnly affirm under the penalties of perjury to state my statement of matter today is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your full name.
My name is Frank Mossberg. Frank, F-R-A-N-K, M-O-S-S-B-U-R-G.
Your business address, please.
It's 2001 K Street, Suite 500, Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much. Your witness.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mossberg.
Good afternoon.
Do you have in front of you a document captioned in Commission case numbers 9056 and 9064 titled Direct Testimony of Frank Mossberg, Bates White, LLC, on behalf of the staff of the Public Service Commission of Maryland and dated with today's date?
I do.
Does the document consist of 8 pages of question and answer testimony and 1 tabular exhibit?
It does.
Did you prepare this document or was it prepared under your direct supervision?
I did.
Do you have any additions, deletions, or other corrections you would like to make at this time?
I do not.
And if the questions were asked of you now as they are asked in this document, would your answers be the same?
They would.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, staff requests that Mr. Mossberg's direct testimony be marked as Staff Exhibit 1.
So marked.
Staff further moves that it be admitted into the evidentiary record.
Seeing no objection, Staff Exhibit 1 is moved into evidence.
Mr. Mossberg, can you give us a brief summary of your testimony, please?
Certainly. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Frank Mossberg from Bates White. We're the Commission's monitor for the 2019 SOS RFP for the four Maryland utilities. We would recommend that you accept the results of this past Monday's bid day for residential Type 1 and Type 2 supply for the four EDCs. And we have four reasons for making that recommendation. The first is that prices are consistent with broader market conditions. All your bids passed the PAT screen. There were no winning bids rejected due to the imposition of the price anomaly threshold. The second reason was that it was a very competitive RFP, and here I have a couple metrics I can share. First, there were 14 bidders. This compares with 13 bidders last April and 10 last October. I'm comparing mostly to April and October because those are also the bid days that had residential and supply bid out. The other bid days, January and June, tend to get smaller bids because they bid out less residential supply. Another metric of competitiveness, we had 5.1 blocks bid overall per block needed. That compares to 4.7 in April and 4.1 to 1 in October. Finally, we had 9 winners. That compares to 8 winners in April and 5 winners in October. The third reason I would recommend approval is that the process was open, fair, and transparent. All winning bidders signed the same contracts, and the evaluation of bids was done entirely on the basis of price. And finally, I would recommend approval because with one exception, as I'll talk about in just a moment, the rules and regulations of the RFP and your commission orders were followed. The one exception, of course, that I do want to bring to your attention had to do with the award of the DP&L residential bids. Back on Monday, we evaluated all the offers made, as did the utility, and we agreed upon a set of winners for the DP&L residential product. At this point, the utility started to perform their back office functions, which basically involve notifying winners and losers and preparing the contracts for actual execution. What I learned the next morning, is that the utility simply forgot or did not notify the winning residential DPL bidders, of which there were 2. There were 2 blocks bid out and 2 winners. That they were winners. They were mistakenly informed that they had lost. The utility apparently realized this the next morning, and called the bidders, one of whom was fine with standing by its offer. The other one, however, noted that prices had gone up overnight and they were not willing to stand by the offer they made. I'll point out that this was within their rights under the RFP rules. They had previously been informed that they were losers and therefore their bid was no longer valid. The utility discussed with me what to do next, and we decided that the best course of action would be to offer the remaining block to the next cheapest supplier who offered on Monday night. We felt this kept the integrity of the process. This used a market competitive offer from a very competitive process. That supplier was willing to stand by that offer, and so we have been able to secure the full supply. Again, we think this keeps within the spirit of the rules. That offer was underneath the PAT. It was a competitive offer, and it was made under a competitive circumstance. However, of course, this is not something that we ever want to happen again, so we'll be working with the utilities to develop processes so this does not happen again. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Spivak, are you have any other direct for your witness?
I do not, Mr. Chairman, but the witness is available for cross-examination at this point.
Okay. Does counsel for OPC or Delmarva wish to cross-examine the witness?
No, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
Do the commissioners have questions of the witness? Commissioner Herman.
What were the other options for replacing the blocks that were not awarded on the day they were to have been awarded?
The other 2 options I think that were probably the most realistic, one was to go to the reserve tranche, which would be scheduled for, I believe it's 2 weeks from now. I think it's the first week in November. So we could have conducted a reserve tranche, and we still could if you all decide that. The other option would be to change the bid plan that is currently in place and bid out that tranche in, I would suggest, January. It's possible to do April, but if there's another problem, this is for delivery starting June 1, 2020. So, if there was another problem in April, that might be cutting it a little close. So the next option would probably be to put that block up for bid in June of this coming year when you have your Type 2 bid day.
And after reviewing the RFP and the provisions for this sort of information, in your view, in your opinion, is this recommendation the best way to proceed at this time?
I think it is. As I said, it maintains the competitive rules as envisioned in the RFP. In other words, we're still judging the bids solely by the basis of price. We're simply using the bids submitted on that Monday. So we're using the offers from a competitive solicitation. They're under the PAT. We could, of course, wait, but there is no telling what the market will do at that point. And of course, if prices could go up, they could also go down, but they're fairly low right now. So I think better to secure the competitive offer that we have here with that final block.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. Do you have your testimony?
I do.
Would you look on page 7, line 11, the end of that first sentence says issues, plural. There wasn't more than one issue, right? Just that one issue.
Yeah, just that one.
Okay, just making sure.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the question regarding the parties' rights under the RFP rules, do you believe that any of the other bidders who were not the low bidder in comparison to the one that did not get was not willing to stand next to their offer or behind their offer, do any of the other unselected bidders have any rights or remedies under the RFP rules that we need to be concerned about?
I don't believe they do. And again, I think that's part of the reason to use the offers from Monday night's bid, which were the kind of official offers from the bidder. Had we begun some sort of more off-books negotiating sessions or something like that, then other bidders might have said, hey, I'm willing to do something like that as well. But here instead, the solution we're proposing uses those offers as was made under the RFP.
Thank you.
Does counsel have any questions for his witness based on the commissioner's questioning?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. The witness may step down. Mr. Spivak, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Commission staff calls David Hoppick.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm on the integrity of the statements made in this matter today, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name.
David Papa,
Spell your full name.
D-A-V-I-D-H-O-P-P-O-C-K.
Give me your business address, please.
6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, Mr. Hoppick.
Good afternoon.
Do you have in front of you a document captioned in Commission case numbers 9056 and 9064, titled "The Commission Staff's Report on the Standard Offer Service Bidding Process and Results for 2019 through 2020," and dated with today's date?
I do.
Does the document consist of 15 pages of information presented both in text and tabular form?
It does.
Did you prepare this document, or was it prepared under your direct supervision?
It was.
Do you have any additions, deletions, or other corrections you would like to make in this document?
No.
And do you adopt this document as part of your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, staff requests that the Commission staff report be marked as Staff Exhibit 2 and admitted into the evidentiary record as such.
Mr. Hoppick's testimony is marked as Staff Exhibit 2, and seeing no objections is moved into evidence.
Mr. Hopper, can you please give us a brief summary of the report, please?
Certainly. So this report covers the bill impacts for residential Type 1 and Type 2 customers resulting from the October 21st bid. I will begin with the residential customers, followed by Type 2 customers, and finally Type 3 customers. So please turn to page 1. So on page 1, the residential summary, about halfway down, you can see these are interim results for standard offer service rates from June 2020 through May 2021. This procurement is only partially complete. There will be an additional round in April of 2020. Below that provides a high-level summary of individual average bill impacts for the 4 utilities, which I will go through individually now. Please turn to page 3. So this shows the results for the Potomac Edison Company, and again we're comparing average residential bills for the period from June 2019 to May 2020 to the following year, June 2020 through May 2021. So for average Potomac Edison, residential customers, they're projected to see a overall bill decrease of approximately 1%. This is approximately a $12 per year decrease, and the standard offer supply rate itself is estimated to be decreasing about 1.5%. Please turn to page 4. So next is the Potomac Electric Power Company, or PEPCO. Again, we're doing a similar comparison of the period from June 2019 through May 2020 to June 2020 through May 2021. Potomac Electric Power Company, or PEPCO customers are projected to receive a bill decrease of approximately 2%. This in dollar terms is about $38 per year, and the SOS supply rate itself is projected to decrease about 4.8%. Please turn to page 5. So these are the results for Delmarva Power and Light. For Delmarva, the total annual bill for customers is projected to increase approximately 4% on a dollar basis for an average customer. This is about $68 a year, and then the SOS supply price itself is projected to increase about 9.4%. And finally, please turn to page 6 for the residential results for Baltimore Gas and Electric. So the average customer is projected to see a decrease in their total bill on an annual basis on the order of about 0.6% a year. In a dollar amount, that's about an $8 decrease per year, and the standard offer service supply rate itself is projected to decrease about 1.1%.
Mr. Hoppick, before we leave the residential, can you tell me if you know, and without giving away any confidential data, for the Delmarva Power and Light company, would there be a measurable change in the total annual bill as a result of this issue that they had in the bid room?
So they are using the lowest winning bids as opposed to one of the lowest winning bids, and then the next bid above that to set the rates. So the rates would be a bit higher. The amount is minimal. We are still working with the parties on coming up with a precise number.
Okay, thanks.
For you
But
on
it
that.
would not, the other parties, for example, PEPCO goes down 4.8%. It wouldn't have any kind of measurable.
No, it would be quite minor.
Right.
We're talking dollars per year or less.
Right, and so, would we would have expected, based on the market and the Delmarva zone, there would have been an expectation of an increase, potentially, and maybe I should have asked Mr. Mossberg that, but, the, this particular issue is not driving the difference between the Delmarva residential and the other companies' residentials, which are going down.
That is correct.
Okay,
So
that's right, that's where I wanted to go.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Hoppick.
you're welcome.
If I could follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Just to be clear then, Mr. Hoppick, the information that you've provided on page 5 in your testimony, this reflects the final bid results, which includes the second selected bid that was testified to by Mr. Mossberg earlier.
So Delmarva is actually setting prices on the winning bids. So it is absorbing the difference between the winning bid and that one bid that was won, like the next up in the stack. So these are set based on the winning bid. So the prices will be a bit lower than the winning bid from one of the two lowest prices, and then the next bid that was also awarded.
Okay, could you clarify absorbing for me? That's the term you used.
So it's my understanding that these rates again are set on the two lowest winning bids, and then the price that Delmarva will actually have to pay the supplier. One of the suppliers will be slightly higher, but that difference will not be paid by Delmarva standard offer service ratepayers.
Okay, so, all right.
Oh, okay, so then the prices, what it would have been had this, the Delmarva price that you have here is what it would have been if the bidders had been informed that they had won.
If they had been informed that they had won without any issues as described previously,
Okay.
that is what this bill impact reflects.
Okay, all right, that's very helpful, because we hadn't, that's new information to us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Hoppick, you may not be the right person to ask this, but what are staff's plans to work with the consultant, the monitor? Because we don't have to just prevent recurrence in DPL. We got to make sure this problem doesn't appear anywhere in the bid notification process. What are your plans? What are staff's plans to work with the monitor?
Beyond actively doing so and working on that going forward, I do not know the specifics other than the fact that we are going to work with them to ensure that this does not happen.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a solution, but you do have plans to work with them for a corrective action to bring to the commission, I assume.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spivak, do you have any additional direct of your witness?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. I did just want to comment, actually, that Mr. Hurley might be a better person to ask that question for, or for that matter, senior staff. But I think Mr. Hoppick is correct. We will be in touch with the bid monitor on an ongoing basis as the year goes on, and this will be an issue that we will be discussing with them.
Mr. Spivak, you didn't enter Mr. Hurley as a witness today. Again,
That is correct.
thank you.
Thank you. I see no request for cross-examination of this witness, so this witness is excused. Mr. Seegers, do you wish to make an opening statement? Or call your first witness if you have a witness. Do you have a witness?
We do have a witness if it is, if the commission would like us to make him available. I believe that Mr. Mossberg properly characterized the nature of the error, and Mr. Hoppick, he correctly characterized the remedy that we're proposing to use. As he described, we are going to hold customers harmless from this, and the rate impacts that you were looking at, they assume that both of the lowest bids, it assumes that they would have been properly notified that they had won. So, and our customers are not going to pay any of the difference between the original two winners and the additional bid that we did have to accept.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions of counsel for Delmarva? I'm not going to force you to sponsor a witness. That's your decision.
We have, he's here. If the commission would like us to, we have it. He is here to testify. As I said before, I believe the testimony that you've heard it correctly it characterizes both the nature and the error and the remedy.
Okay, I see the commissioners have no questions of you, so I'm not going to ask that you sponsor a witness. Okay, any additional matters or statements from the parties or People's Counsel? Okay, seeing none, the commission will take this under advisement. We will be issuing a determination very soon on this matter. Any other items or questions?
Nothing further from staff, Mr. Chairman.
With that, this trial type evidentiary hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners.